there will be spoilers, because sometimes we try to be really conscientious when it's a really, really good movie that a lot of people are excited about seeing, like Deadpool and Wolverine. This is not one of those cases, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. So
how do you want to start it off?
Nobody cares, Andre.
yeah, that's kind of like what I figured. So yeah, Paulie, let's begin with you without going into any spoilers just yet, but just your general impressions and what were your expectations going in, because I find that it's always good to start with expectations. Let everyone know where you're coming from, as that may influence your final verdict.
Well, I think what you're hearing from a lot of our buddies reviewing this is that we had a very low bar going in. That's what I had, and it did kind of go above that low bar. That being said, it is a weak superhero film that's not a Captain America film, and the actors are actually did great with the material that they had. You know, they have no power over the editing or the reshoots. The reshoots really evident. So there were some good moments, but it's a storytelling mess. What I was surprised with how clunky the beginning of the film in regards to fight choreography. That first act was story-wise was just it was like what is going on? There's like that's where you really were feeling the reshoots. But I was surprised that the fight choreography was so clunky. It got better, but it's definitely not Winter Soldier level. I like Anthony Mackie. I like him a lot, and he had some moments in here. Harrison Ford had some moments. It wasn't just phoning in. He was in it a lot more than I thought he would be as the president, not as the Red Hulk. And Danny Ramirez was the new sidekick, and he was in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. He plays a Joaquin Cortez, who becomes the new Falcon, so to speak. Very charming guy. They had way too little charming, fun moments. That's what this needed. And it's just what it also wasn't for me. There just wasn't a lot of I don't know how to explain it. That chemistry that Cap and it's not even that they had the chemistry between the actors, but it just wasn't a fun movie, if that makes sense. And I'd given it a 2.5 out of 5. Well, ultimately, it's just it's just a weak hero film, a superhero film. So those are my first impressions. Besides this one,
yeah. And as for me, just so everyone knows, like I don't care about what people expect you to think, what may be the popular opinion. If I like something, even something that I was skeptical about going in, I'm going to say so. Case in point, everyone were blown away when I said I freaking loved Black Adam, because I did. I thought it was an awesome movie, although that's a minority point of view. So will I have the same verdict on this one? Oh, hell no. No, this was boring, and I thought it was really sloppily put together. And you can tell that this is a movie that has been remade 3 times over, and that this final version of it is a Frankenstein abomination of 4 different cuts being spliced together. You could, like there were some things in there that just didn't make any sense whatsoever, which to me signaled, okay, here now we have something that's left over from a previous cut that may have made sense there, but in this version maybe they were edited, they had it edit themselves into a corner, so they had to keep this plot there, but it made literally no sense. And there were a few things like that where you can just tell that the whole thing is directionless. It is thematically confused. It doesn't know what it wants to do. It doesn't know what kind of story it wants to tell, because it has changed that so many times. I would actually be very curious to see the original pre-reshoot version of this movie. Not because I think that would have been a better movie in any kind of way, but I do believe that there would have been a vision. And there wasn't here. There's no vision in this. This is basically just them desperately trying to cobble something together and failing. All of that Marvel magic that you had in earlier movies is completely gone. And it's not that you can tell visually what was which reshoot, but you can tell because thematically there's no red thread here. This thing just doesn't fit. I mean, partially it's about, oh, woe is me. It's so horrible to be Captain America, especially because Mackie is black, and that's really, really difficult. You can tell that they have done a lot with Sabra. Is that the character's name? The Israeli Black Widow.
Yeah.
That her part is something that they have trimmed down considerably, but still she has a role which is guaranteed to sway or to invite controversy, because she basically is the closest advisor to the president, and she's going to do what he says. I know there are some people of the very anti-Israeli contingent who are going to be tremendously triggered by that. So it's a movie that to me seems to have come out of desperation. It's a movie where they realized, oh shit, we have made something which looked super cool on paper when we wrote it, but now when we filmed it and we see where the country is going, this thing is completely unreleasable, and they tried to fix it, but they had a fundamental product that simply isn't fixable. And it wasn't. This is a complete and total mess. It's not down there with the worst of Marvel movies, because the worst of Marvel movies is outright propaganda. And this isn't that. The most propagandistic things of this movie have been like removed or toned down. But what it is possibly the most directionless Marvel movie I have seen. I agree with your verdict of 2.5. Only I'm going to give that on a scale of 10.
I love it. I love it. That's fair. That's totally fair. There's so many problems with this, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just probably
we can really get into it, because I think,
you know what. Let's begin with, what did you like? Tell me something you liked about. Was there something you felt worked about the movie that you were like, okay, this is the good thing about it? What was good?
Well, I like the actors, but you know, that has nothing to do with the writing, right, and the storytelling. So, which I am, you know, I just really didn't like. So besides the actors, which really is not, you know, they made it a little bearable. What else did I like? You know, maybe that, you know, the fights over the ocean, you know, that was kind of cool for a minute. You know, when they're going up against the jet fighters and stuff. You know, maybe a portion of the little Red Hulk that happened. But everything else, like, even if, again, I liked the charm of Harrison Ford, Anthony Mackie, and Danny Ramirez, but that just made it a little more bearable than, you know, than, like, what if they're just completely, if they were unlikable, this would have been just absolutely horrible. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think that's because I'm trying to see what I like that wasn't the actor's charisma. You know what I'm saying? Their charm.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I noticed that you're really reaching there.
Oh, yeah.
When you have to go to the actor's charisma, that's kind of like Cultured Casino's usual excuse, that the movie at the very least was like, it was in frame, like the camera was in focus. That's kind of like that kind of praise right there. And I tend to agree with you that, yeah, the actors, they did well. And I will also praise the effort of trying to salvage past movies. Like here, we pick up some threads from from The Incredible Hulk from back in 2008. A tremendously underrated movie, by the way. They tried to salvage the fact that there's a dude sticking out of planet Earth from The Eternals, a movie that they would have been better off pretending was somewhere else in the multiverse and just never ever talk about it again. But anyway, they chose to do that. So they try to acknowledge that. So that's cool. But beyond that, there was nothing that I liked. There was not one scene where I felt like, yeah, this is a cool scene here. There's a cool score. This is something I want to rewatch. Nothing.
There was one
I
scene.
even thought
I got a scene.
Yeah, carry on.
I got a scene. It's
Okay.
when they went to visit Isaiah for the first time, and he took Joaquin, and they were sparring with each other. That was fun. They had like one or two scenes, the three of them.
Yeah, you had a couple of they were good. You had like a couple of cool scenes like that, but even those, they can't hold a candle to anything we saw. For instance, in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, this is something that I noticed, particularly with the fight scenes in Captain America: Winter Soldier. Like Chris Evans, he really did not skip leg day, because you could see that he really delivered power in those kicks. And the directors, they made it sure that you felt that power. That was something that I paid attention to in the fight scenes, especially like one kick that Mackie did. And I'm not blaming him for that. I'm blaming the people filming it. Because you could tell so closely that was just like a choreographed motion with absolutely zero power in it.
Yeah, I was surprised how unathletic he looked sometimes in the film. Like I would I didn't have on my card at all, my bingo card at all. Danny Ramirez and even Isaiah at some parts looked even more athletic than Mackie.
Yeah. I was just talking about like the way that it was shot and filmed, like just comparing to The Winter Soldier, and that's like the movie where
no comparison.
When they hit someone, when they kicked someone, you could feel the power. Like if anything, they needed to take it down a little bit because they were like kicking people into the other room, but you could feel the power of that in the way it was shot, the way the sound effects and everything. Whereas here, I mean, you had to use a lot of goodwill because obviously it was very choreographed and no actual power was delivered in a couple of scenes there, which actually took me out because I noticed it.
Now that I'm thinking about it, because there were some flips, right? Like there were some good moves, but you're right. It was just a little too stagey and presentational. Yes. It was almost as if even the other military guys that were with him, you never got that these guys kick ass. It's like they were almost a little too. It was too TV. It was this whole thing was almost like an extra episode of Winter of the.
And if I can for just a second, just listening to you guys, what sounds like to me is what I was trying to say was the problem with this whole thing to begin with. Now you basically have a movie that just has to fill in the blanks and the gaps. Right? It's not even really, it doesn't even sound like it's really even a movie for Captain America so much as it is just to get us from one point to point B, right? Like, and that's kind of what some of these movies have become now, it feels like, or sounds like to me, at least from this film, is like, they'd only exist just to get us to another point in the story. But the problem is they don't have anything planned out. So they don't really know exactly where it's going. So if you had some direction, you could have pre-planned a lot of this stuff. And to me, it just sounds, especially when you got to reshoot it 4 times.
Well, as soon as I saw in the previews that they had the Eternals guy sticking out of the ocean, I thought this is franchise triage. This is, like you say, a bridge. Yeah. It's a bridge movie to try to, like you say, take up this, because and like I say, it really shows that they don't have a story of this character's own. They have to like filter in all this other stuff, which, might just be the burden of having this interconnected multiverse. Every movie is dependent on the other one.
Exactly.
They built a rod for their own back by doing it this way, and that's their own fault. I just want to say real quick, I haven't seen the film, can't say about the whole film, but they have either marveled themselves or leaked otherwise. I've seen a couple of the fight scenes online. And as soon as I saw them, my very first thought was, did they hire the guys from Echo to choreograph these things? Because it looks absolutely weightless. Absolutely weightless.
Speaking of Echo, that was going to be my question, actually, was Do I have to have seen Falcon and Winter Soldier
Yes.
to get this? I figured.
Because I have not seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, I could guess
Oh, really?
what had
Okay.
happened.
Mhm.
I could kind of like, okay, so fine. So here we have someone with a massive, massive chip on his shoulder who is obviously the first Captain America, just like they did in Doctor Who, where oh, the one you thought was the first Doctor, I wasn't the first Doctor after all. And this is kind of like something similar. So obviously there was a Captain America before Chris Evans. He was black and he was treated like crap because he was black, and he was put in jail for 30 years for some reason. And he has a massive chip on his shoulder, and that's a big part of the plot. So yeah, that is something. And also there's like, and suddenly Bucky is running for office or something like that, which I also assume must be part of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I could just say that based on the gap, yes, you really will need to have seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Okay, so I've seen both, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting you say that, because this is nothing compared to how heavy-handed Falcon the Winter Soldier is, Andre.
Oh, I believe you, and that is why I think that this.
Yeah, but he's talking about story ties. Yeah.
No, story ties
of the heavy-handedness.
But what I'm seeing is that they actually took out a lot of the Isaiah Bradley ham-fisted storyline, because you could see it was in this movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He was
right,
and he was in and out. But I mean, there's 5 writers on this, Chato. There's 5 writers on this.
Right, but my main question was, do we have to have seen the show? Because that's what my entire point was before, is that all these movies and shows now, and that was the biggest mistake, was making these shows important. Because you have a streaming service now that
yes and no.
On the
So
storm.
For me, it's yes and no, because it's like, actually it'd probably be yes, because you're going to be like, well, who are these characters? Oh, they're in the TV show. Go watch it. So they're probably going to make them watch it.
My question is, and it's probably a rhetorical question, is the story compelling, and are the stakes believable? Are you involved in the stakes?
Can I answer that real quickly?
Sure.
No.
There you go.
Paulie, do you agree with my assessment?
Yes.
And there you have it. 2-word reviews.
Interview that Johnny Carson could ever have.
Carnage.
These stakes are actually completely and utterly ridiculous, because what it is, it's like the stakes here. It's the brand new American president, Harrison Ford, Thaddeus Ross, and the movie begins with him just getting elected, so mild spoilers, and then we fast forward to the end of his 100 days, and he has now signed a treaty for how humanity is to use this dude that's sticking out of the planet since the Eternals, because that's the source of a brand new metal which is even stronger than vibranium, namely adamantium, and it's so versatile, and they have to use it together in peace. So he needs this peace treaty. And here's the thing: this president,
with India, Japan, and with India,
and he's so vagina imium. That's unbelievable.
The China isn't really mentioned, because the big, strong, tough president is the Japanese president, and America is completely and totally subservient to the Japanese. The Japanese military and everyone are kind of like presented as a threat to America. America is just one other nation that does not get to dictate any rules or anything like that, completely dependent on a diplomatic solution. Ross is totally stressed out, because if this thing doesn't work, if these other hypersensitive people won't work with him, that's going to ruin his legacy as a president.
So is Japan being used as China adjacent?
Probably, because Japan is super strong here. They have a really strong, tough, manly man leader who's going to walk right over the American president and America as a whole. So he kind of like needs to stand up to him, and he can't react all emotional and like a woman.
Which was another weird storytelling thing, because he even said, "Oh, me and him go way back." There was so much language in here where they were like talking about action that didn't happen on screen.
Yeah.
But also too, I guess Japan had an air force.
And one that's capable of actually chasing down and fighting the American Air Force, with all the pregnant women and DEI hires and stuff like that.
Here's
I
another
don't think there's any movie that would dare to make the Chinese the bad guy.
Here's another weird thing too, Andre and guys, is that it all, like you said it's earlier, it almost felt like part sequel to the Incredible Hulk, part to the TV show, and which I think if it went one way or the other, which would have been but it would have been interesting, like you said, there would have been a vision.
And at one point, I do not doubt that there was a vision, and I would have liked to see that movie. And then tear it a new one, of course, but because the vision would have been completely hopeless. And you can obviously see some kind of the leftover of the vision here. But what's interesting is then trying to see where were they originally going, because Harrison Ford is an incredibly weak president, and he's just not up to par with the pressures of dealing with international diplomacy and the leaders of other countries, especially Japan, and then he buckles under pressure and he hulks out and he ruins everything. I kind of is that how you see Trump? Is that is that a brand new thing that's later in the reshoots, or is that something that's still reflecting of that original vision? Because either way, it's completely way out of reality. It's just completely ridiculous when you see what's actually happening in the White House and how the world is responding to it right now. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, and it falls apart even worse than that Netflix movie, the G20 movie. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, if this dude is meant to be like a parallel for Biden or something, then maybe. But if there's any kind of Orange Man in here, it just falls completely flat on its face. It's completely ridiculous that America would allow itself to be walked over as badly as happens in this movie.
And then it tries to go for this overall kind of really lame patriotic tone, and where you're there for your fellow soldier. I think that was like the last minute reshoot that really paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you can totally tell towards the end there about president trying to be a better person. Oh, that was something they shot the last 2 weeks. Most definitely. That was a post-election reshoot.
Do you think so?
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a post-election reshoot.
When I was in a room full of, it was a media critic screening, and I was next to a guy who I had to listen to his stupid conversation before the movie started, and he was nice and loud, and not happy about the current president, older joker. I didn't say, I don't want to say anything. I just I just want to watch the movie. But it was hilarious what he was reacting to. He was all excited and happy when the guy hulked out and ripped apart the White House. I'm like, people are gonna run with this whole Trump thing and the White House and the Red Hulk.
The only ones who are going to run with it are propagandized people who do not have any clue what's actually going on, who just get their news from Rachel Maddow. They're the ones who's going to run with this.
Well, described that guy. You just described that guy.
Exactly. We have a question here. I just want to bring it up since we mentioned Red Hulk. Many Dragon 5 says, Andre and Paulie, how long is Red Hulk in the movie really? What would be your estimate?
Oh, in terms of minutes, 3 to 5.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's not as many as 10 minutes. Closer to 5. 5 minutes tops of Red Hulk in the movie.
Tops. I mean, we're not counting.
Did you enjoy seeing Red Hulk on screen? Was that any kind of fun?
I liked it more than I thought I would. How about that?
Yeah.
You know, there was some cool actiony moments.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say that
but
I was biased against Red Hulk to begin with. I have never liked Red Hulk. I think Red Hulk is a lame, stupid, silly character that should never, ever have been invented. I mean, it's a what-if story from the 70s that they did. Like, what if General Ross turned into the Hulk? That's what they did. They only colored him red. This was a story by Jeff Loeb when in the aftermath of a personal tragedy in Jeff Loeb's life, which we feel with him for, but he never really recovered as a writer after that. And the entire Hulk title nosedived at this time, because then this was when Bruce Banner was basically taken off the map, and you had two Hulks to replace him: young Asian kid as new Green Hulk, and Thunderbolt Ross as Red Hulk. And I don't know which was worse of the two, but honestly, I thought that Red Hulk was like the more annoying of the two, because they tried to sell him as this super duper exciting thing that everyone loved and cared about. I never saw that. I never saw any actual comic book readers love Red Hulk. To me, he was always a lame character. I was not excited to see him in this movie. I don't know that anyone were. And I thought it was completely lame in the movie as well. No, I mean,
that's
there
fair.
was nothing I enjoyed.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, again, they're pushing it really hard with the families and kids. The Red Hulk. That's how they're gonna make money. Tom,
I'm curious if kids are going to like Red Hulk. I mean, this is an old man Hulk who looks like Harrison Ford, who is the weakest Hulk we have ever seen, and who does nothing but get cuts and bruises and bleed.
Yeah, he would have killed Anthony Mackie in a heartbeat.
Oh, he absolutely would. He absolutely would. But I mean, like, compared to any other Hulk
the other ones,
in the MCU, this guy, he wouldn't last 2 seconds against Bruce Banner's Green Hulk.
Story-wise, though, it's what did you think of him, in regards to what's his name?
The leader.
The bad guy.
Samuel Stearns.
And
leader in the comics.
Okay, what did you think of him?
I thought I'm actually very glad to see them follow up on the storyline. But I was tremendously disappointed with the execution, because I know my vintage Hulk comics, and the leader, he has two looks. He has the traditional look, which is green skin, a really tall head, and then you have the look from the 90s onwards, which is basically like this huge heart or butt-shaped head with like the green stuff. And they went with this design here, but I can't believe how they botched it. I thought he looked ridiculous. I mean, he looked like the Toxic Avenger.
He looked different in different reshoots.
Yeah,
a lot of them did.
Well. Yeah,
a lot of them did. There was a lot of that, guys.
To me, he looked like the Toxic Avenger. I just thought he looked tremendously bad. He looked so bad. I was actually distracted by seeing him, and I do not blame them for having hidden him in the marketing. Now, initially I thought that was because he looked so cool and they wanted to save the surprise, but no, he just looked like the Toxic Avenger. He looked so bad, and I was honestly very disappointed with his handling, because this is a character that I actually liked, and I was excited to see make a return, but I felt that they bought.
It's funny you say that, because up until they did the face reveal, I thought it was pretty cool the way they were handling him, because he was in the shadows a lot in this film, and then which I thought was was decent. It was like, all right,
that actually made me anticipate seeing a really cool leader on screen.
And I like the actor. We know the actor.
I have not one bad word about the actor. I was very happy to see him return and everything, but the execution, I was so disappointed with the execution, and also his motivation. I mean, so this is the leader's motivation. It's just like, I want to, like, this guy who has kept me captive and who has done his job in service of the United States government. He's a really bad guy because I don't like him, so I'm going to expose him for the world. It's like, really, that's your motivation? The leader wants to fucking take over the world, and here you just want petty revenge? I mean, what kind of woman wrote this?
Well, that's the thing with all these characters, though. It was like
they're all written like angry, bitter, betrayed women.
Let's talk about. I don't know if you guys had any questions, but I wanted to talk about the little female Israeli Black Widow.
I had a quick question. If I could, since I didn't see the movie. So just so I didn't miss it, is the Red Hulk the result of the leader's machinations?
Yes.
Okay, because I saw it. I know we're going to get to it later, but and maybe I missed something. Obviously, I probably because I didn't see the movie. At the end of the movie, in the post-credits scene, I sort of thought maybe the leader made the Red Hulk in order to bolster for an oncoming threat. He's sort of doing that.
No.
No,
okay. No, it was basically hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Okay,
that's his motivation.
I thought it was something more. I know. Dare I dream there was something more nuanced, like this bad guy
it was
did something.
It was a cat fight.
Okay.
The leader and Ross.
Yeah, I thought it was.
The only thing I want to add is part of the challenge of these large films, any large film, is that you go, wow, I don't care about anybody in it. I don't care about the story. I don't care about the stakes. I'm not involved. And then you think of a movie like Sideways, a small movie like Sideways, and those two great crazy guys, Paul Giamatti and can't remember his name.
Thomas Hayden Church.
And first of all, you love them. They're crazy, especially Thomas Hayden Church, and you get completely caught up in their silly little adventure for fractions of a cent on a dollar compared to a movie like this. And it always amazes me that all the best brains, the most amount of money, can't create the same emotional investment in their movie than a movie like Sideways. Yeah, as a writer, I am constantly amazed by that.
Well, I think part of the problem is
here.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is because you're treating this like the 15th movie in a series or the, third season of a show. Like, that's where we're at now, instead of these movies being treated like actual movies, right? And that's what my biggest complaint with this whole thing has been, is you can still have a shared universe and have movies that stand on their own. Like, that's what I don't get here.
My point is, as a writer, when you don't have the story right and the emotional center right, there is nothing more horrible to be forced to write and try to figure out something that works when you know what you're doing is never going to work, because the core of it is not honest.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, Paul, in a weird way. It's like, because you can't, it's not like somebody came to Feige and said, you know what? I got this great story involving, Falcon America and Red Hulk. No. This movie only exists because they had to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And that's what I'm getting at, is now you're in a point where it's literally like a writing assignment. Like, your job is, you go write the Red Hulk movie with Captain Falcon. You go write the Eternals. You go write, the Marvels. Like, that's basically how this shit works now. And it's like, that's not how movies should work. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's nothing behind this movie that has any heart or reason or want to exist other than it has to exist because Marvel.
Well, you're just assuming that based on their two reviews there, Tom. Be careful. You could watch it and love it.
That is true. I'm not going to disagree with you. I've liked weirder shit, Morbius.
I'm still debating whether to go see it or not. I don't like going to see movies for homework, because mine is not a review channel.
Exactly. That's my issue. Yeah.
Why am I going to do it? I mean, I did end up seeing, for instance, as you guys know, Companion at the insistence of Robert Meyer Burnett and Chris Gore, and loved it. Absolutely loved the movie. I wish there were more movies like that. And how many companions could they make based on the budget of this movie? It's still, again, even if you've got a roadmap that you must adhere to based on what the studio tells you, there's still ways of getting yourself emotionally attached to a story, a
Oh,
B
yeah.
story,
Yeah.
a character. There's techniques that as a writer, it's demanded of you to find some emotional core. Yes, it is difficult to have a writing assignment no worse or no better than a university paper on painful rectal itch. I mean,
Yeah, well, the curse for Marvel is that we already know they can do that between Infinity War and Winter Soldier. We have examples within this shared universe of something that actually worked on an emotional level, on a narrative level, and then you have things like this where it's like, well, it's not like they were charged with an impossible task. It's just that they didn't do a good job at it, apparently.
Well, they had, again, you had 5 different writers, how many different reshoots, how many different visions, and you saw visions of each one in this one film. And how can anyone, be invested at all?
There's not too many movies where I can think of where there's been this much reconfiguration, multitudes of.
Well, the Ant-Man, which was terrible.
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is I can't think of a movie where it's actually worked for it. I mean, sure, you have the Wonder Woman situation, but my understanding is that was mostly in the third act. And that shows there. Like, you can tell it feels like a completely different movie once you hit that third act. I mean, yes, there's been plenty of other films where they've been reshot, but Andre, I know you got to think of at least one movie of anybody here on this panel that was actually saved by reshoots, and I can't think of too many where it was this extensive.
I mean, I have to say that this kind of movie with nonsensical dialogue, which I include all the Star Wars, even the classic ones, I can't write that.
And as for movies, yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Chris J827, he pointed out right there. World War C. That's one movie that was subject to extensive reshoots, and where the end result actually turned out all right. And to your point, Paulie, you are of course right. Ant-Man, the most recent one, Ant-Man Quantumania, was also subject to pretty extensive reshoots, but that was only one level of reshoots, and from everything we have been told, that was about adding humor. Whereas in this case, the movie was subjected to 1 round of reshoots, but 3 rounds of reshoots. And they've essentially reshot the whole movie, trying to reconfigure it, because the movie that they initially made just didn't work with the atmosphere in which it would be released, and it would never work. It would, and it didn't. And I probably the movie that they did release may have been better than what they originally had. I think that the original movie would have pissed more people off. It would have been more consistent for sure. Yeah. But if it's consistently bad and consistently offending the audience, is that better than something as completely directionless and a Frankenstein abomination like this most certainly was?
So I have another question. Was the movie pushed along because of the consequences of the actions of Anthony Mackie's character, or was he just reacting to outside stimuli?
The latter. I mean, you could have removed him from the whole movie and it wouldn't have made a difference.
So to me, that is one of the biggest problems with a lot of the superhero movies, is that the lead character's actions do not drive the story. Like if you take a look at Iron Man 1, it's all about his actions, the cause and effect of the decisions that he makes. You can only stand so much external pressure. Oh my God, I gotta save the world from X, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of stuff's more for an Avengers film anyway, right?
Yeah. Anyway, Paulie, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way that when I think back to the movie right now, with the from the point of view of how important was really Captain America, or this Captain America, Captain Falcon America, to the story. Obviously, we see it from his point of view, but in terms of the action itself, like what fundamentally has sparked the action is that there's a dude sticking out of planet Earth because of the events of the Eternals. The new super duper weak president is trying to salvage his legacy by making a treaty that that will assure a fair usage of the resources inherent in this dude that's sticking out of planet Earth. Samuel Stearns has a plan to screw the president over because he's an emotional bitch who can't get over a grudge, and the president is terrified of Japan. And that's fundamentally the entire story. And Captain America, his only role in there is that he's one of the soldiers who just so happens to be there.
Yeah,
but he doesn't really matter. You could have removed him from the whole story, and it wouldn't mean anything.
Right? Yeah, and Stearns uses everyone's iPhones against them.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. But that has nothing to do with Mackie's character. He didn't cause that. He's just reacting to it. He's reacting to the orders. He's carrying out orders, and he's reacting to what's happening. But he doesn't actually cause anything to happen, does he?
No, you're right. And he is trying to find his footing with the president, and the president wants him to restart the Avengers again. So there's that we didn't talk about. So there is something there. That's why he's trying. Right, but you're right. It's almost like he's lost most of the. He's pretty much lost in this film. He's lost in his own film.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Seriously, Japan is the bad guy. How much more obvious does Hollywood want to show that they don't want to call out who the real bad guys are? Last time I checked, it wasn't Japan that occupied Tibet. Yeah, this is my point too. And wasn't that whole thing too? You're not wrong, Paul, because if I remember right, the Red Dawn remake, didn't they change that? Because of that,
they turned it into North Korea, as if North Korea was just about to stage a land invasion, like a physical invasion of the United States. I mean, how ridiculous was that?
Yeah, and it's like, if you're gonna remake that movie, that makes sense. Like, in the modern scheme of things,
this movie sucks. You know, the more
like you're gonna change your score.
The more you think about it,
the more I think about it, like I'm like, shit.
Okay, so you're going from 5 out of 10 down?
No, I was a 2.5 out of 5. I'm going down.
I know. Well, that's 5 out of 10. What the hell's the difference?
I'm going down to 1.5.
Okay, so it's a 3.5.
Or if you round that up, you're giving it the same as me, because I gave it 2.5 out of 10.
So I'd be like 3 or 4 out of 10.
That's what I just said.
Whatever. The more I sit with it, and saw last night.
The more you think about it, the more you hear me describe what you already saw, the more you realize.
You want me to really ruin it for you?
Sucked.
You don't even have to watch a whole nother movie. Just go watch. I just posted the other day the Spider-Man trailer, the original Spider-Man trailer. Go watch that trailer and come back. I bet you'll hate the movie even more. Because that reminded me. I'm watching that trailer. And that trailer is better than any of the movies we've gotten in the last 5 years.
I made it very, very clear in all the reviews I'll do, right? This one was free. I got a popcorn and a drink free. But here's how I feel. Man. Sorry, man.
Now, honestly, probably should.
I'm not like angry like Wakanda. I mean, I'm not like angry like Wakanda Forever.
Kevin Feige should be sorry because he blew it.
Right. And I can always tell too, as far as like little writing inaccuracies, right? Whenever you're doing this is just a nitpick of me, guys. This is a nitpick. Chat, just forgive me. Chato, forgive me. Is whenever they write people of color in these things, and which they made it prominent with the Latino guy. He said a word in Spanish that only Mexicans say, but then he's from Miami, and I'm like, no one from Miami says "híjole." I don't give a shit. I know Andre did not catch that, but I caught that. I was like, that's cringe, man. That's just cringe. That's cringe. Okay, I'm done.
What's it mean? You can't leave us hanging. Yeah.
Oh, híjole. It's like, God dang, híjole, que la chingada, híjole. And he says that when he saw something, he's like, híjole. He didn't even say it right. He's like, híjole.
Oh, Jesus.
Híjole, Captain. Two more things. Didn't it bug you that they would call Anthony Mackie Cap? That just bugged the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That bugged the shit out of me. Hey, Cap, we got a problem here. That's not Cap, man.
I think
what bugged me is that everyone went out of their way to try to pretend that he was Cap.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, did you get, Andre, at the beginning, the opening credit? They didn't say Captain America. It just said Brave New World. And
Yes, that's true. You're right. I didn't think about it, but you're right. I was just thinking Brave New World. Yeah, that's the same number of words as New World Order, and now we know because of the opening sequence they were bound to a 3-word opening. I didn't catch that there was no Captain America in the title, but you are right, of course.
Oh yeah.
Then John Apocalypse says Red Hulk was good in Thunderbolts.
This I will agree with. What he's referring to is a comic book miniseries, and this is the Thunderbolts that I wish that they had chosen. It was a Thunderbolts consisting of Red Hulk as the team leader, also featuring the Punisher and Elektra that has a thing with each other, and Deadpool, who is jealous of the Punisher because he has a thing with Elektra, and the leader, who is red for the occasion, and some other I don't remember right now. That was a great comic book series.
Agent Venom was in there. Agent Venom
was in there too. That's right. Yes. Yeah, he was the forgettable one. But the other ones were really, really cool. And honestly, I think that if they had made that the team for the Thunderbolts, more people would be excited for the movie, because that was a very cool miniseries. And that was far better than Red Hulk ever was in his own comics. But he was good in that miniseries. I will acknowledge that. Yep. And also, that leader was far more clever and devious than anything we see in this movie.
And if you're
there's a very interesting interview with Kamal, who was in the Eternals, that everyone on board thought it was going to be a massive hit. Like, honestly, a very interesting interview.
Yeah.
With them, and
which only goes to show how completely out of touch with reality they are.
Well, you have to be when you make the movie, Andre. You've got to commit to the point where reality doesn't exist anymore, or you can't do it.
Well, kudos for them doing that, because reality didn't exist for them, and here's the end result.
Yes,
well, they were going to reimagine the superhero movie.
You got to believe it.
There you go, guys.
But Paulie, unfortunately, has to be leaving us. I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you here to bounce some ideas and some thoughts of, to confirm what I thought, add something else new. And you know what? I agree with you. What you said makes me like and appreciate this movie even less than I already did.
Yeah,
I think I may have to revise my score of 2.5 out of 10 down to maybe 1.5 out of 10. Because the more I think about it, the less I like it. Ain't no way this thing is going to get to $90 million over the opening weekend. When you just look at the early reviews, and so far it's just like the friendly critics, and they still give it a mixed response. Mixed being code for mostly negative. As soon as more fans like us see it, they're going to tear this piece of garbage a new one.
Oh, yeah. So my final question would be, like, where does it stand in the bottom of the barrel of Marvel films?
That bottom of the barrel is now starting to be the majority of the movies, isn't it? This is kind of like the problem that everything that's come out in the last 5 years, with the exception of Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Deadpool and Wolverine, in my personal opinion, has ranged from pretty bad to outright awful. And that's the majority of Marvel screen time is in the last thing here. So that bottom of the barrel is starting to be pretty big. And sadly, this belongs in the bottom of the barrel. This is right. It's down there with. It's down there with keep the water Mexicans out of Wakanda forever, and it's down there with the Marvels. It's down there.
The audience isn't even, or the critics aren't even with it. Look at here.
It's better than Thor: The Dark World.
No, I like Thor: The Dark World.
No,
okay.
Comparatively.
No, and that's kind of what I was getting at too. Is I bet a lot of these films that we didn't care so much for 5-10 years ago are going to be so much better now.
I mean, Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World are getting better and better by the day.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
And then
all right, guys.
All right, take care of yourself, Paul. Check out Latino Slant.
Thanks for joining us.
Then we got Kalikioki here, who says, so the rumors are true. Was this Hulk only in the movie for 5 minutes? Heard he only appears in the third act of the movie.
Yes,
yeah, we kind of got the answer to that. But
completely true. 5 minutes at most, and in the third act, towards the very end.